Welcome to Ice Time, the Buffalo News' hockey podcast, episode 2. I'm Lance Lysowski, joined, of course, by Mike Harrington. Mike, saw an interesting one at KeyBank Center on Monday night, didn't we?
The Florida Panthers are the Stanley Cup champions for a reason. They just don't get flustered during games. The Sabres came back at them, but ultimately the Panthers don't beat themselves, and the Sabres did in that game. Just too many mistakes. If you're playing a bad team, you're playing the Stanley Cup champions, you can't win. And that's what we've learned about the Florida Panthers here in the last couple of years. They just know how to win.
Sabres are 4-5-1 through 10 games. Last year through 10 games, they were 5-5. So we'll get to that, though. We will dissect or at least provide some analysis and thoughts over this start to the season and how it may compare or does compare, of course, to what the team was doing a year ago under Don Granato. But first, going back to that game on Monday night, Mike, of course, Lindy Ruff lamented this point post-game. Rasmus Dahlin's penalty in the third period just killed them, giving the Panthers another power play. It's fascinating, really, to look at Dahlin's start to the season. In some ways, especially in the offensive zone, he's really looking like himself again. He's been aggressive. He looks like he's finally overcome that, quote, middle body injury that caused him to miss most of training camp. On the other side of things, though, Mike, he blows his assignment on the power play goal in the first period that the Panthers score, leaves the second goal of the game, leaves the front of the net wide open. His defense, really, just his defensive zone coverage hasn't been good enough for a guy who's playing that many minutes. And then, of course, the frustration penalties. He had been taking too many penalties in previous years. It was a point of emphasis to clean that side of his game up. But an act of frustration like that, he had that play killed. He defended it. Honestly, it was almost a textbook defensive play, that the way that he separated Anton Lundell from the puck, but then he goes ahead and whacks him in the face with his stick. And then he
wanted to just separate him in general. The play was dead and buried. There was no reason to do that. And you're right. What we're seeing is kind of a bit of a chameleon here. We're seeing good Rasmus and bad Rasmus. We're seeing really good Rasmus in the offensive zone. That second goal last night, the way he used his body to shield himself from Lysowski going into the zone to score that goal was a great play by an elite defenseman. But in the defensive zone, you're right. Not really thinking out there the right process. I still am baffled where he was going on the Reinhart goal. Why are you leaving the front of the net in that situation? There's no reason to do that. The play is covered. Barkov is taken care of in the back, especially if you stay with Reinhart. Barkov doesn't have any outlet to put the puck in the front of the net. I think Dahlin's pressing still. I still don't believe he's 100% healthy. He's an $11 million player. He's the captain. I think there's a lot of external factors at work here. He just, it seems to me, needs to calm down a little, especially in the defensive zone.
Yeah, this was my concern when the Sabres named him captain. I didn't see the need to name one for this season. Given the expectations, Lindy Ruff coming in, he really wasn't given any time to name the captain. I'm not even suggesting that Dahlin shouldn't have that C on his chest. I would have waited a year. Let this team tackle this playoff drought. Let them adjust to a new coach. Think about everything you know about Dahlin since the start. Think about Dahlin, the pressure that he puts on himself, and when he's not only doing that, putting pressure on himself, he also has to be a much better player. He wasn't good enough last season. So not only are you putting pressure on a guy to reach another level as a defenseman and be that number one and live up to an $11 million contract, but then you slap a C on his chest and, hey, go lead when you're dealing with all the external pressure of this situation, and you could see it's eating at him right now.
It is. But here was the problem. They had no choice. Would you
choice?
Would you want right now the Buffalo Sabres to be the only team in the NHL without a captain?
Because I don't care. Lindy Ruff has had a team without a captain before. They're the only team with a 13-year playoff drought. What distinction matters more?
I would not have added something else like that. Another label on this franchise. The only franchise without a captain. I've just given him an $11 million contract. I may as well get, and he's not a kid. He's now played, he's approaching 500 games in the NHL. So to me, I just think he needs to buck up. He needs to play better. He needs to play smarter. and he needs to lead because that's the situation he's in.
That's a fair point. I just think that there would have been a balance. I don't think you need to put a C on somebody. You could have had 3 A's this season, given him time to breathe, given him time to focus on his own game. But like you said, they decided to do it, and now it's time for him to figure it out.
Yeah.
He is looking better on that power play, though, which takes us to our second topic, Mike. The power play has finally scored. It's actually got 2 goals.
Excuse me.
There you go.
The power
by
play,
Jason Zucker, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, I actually on X even used it. The first one was worthy of a bulletin. The Sabres have scored a power play goal. That's how unique it was to see that. But having said all that, and we can joke about it, whatever, they are looking substantially better on the power play, especially their top unit. They've gotten 2 goals here. Now they're on a power play streak, actually, 2 games in a row. But they're also generating some momentum. I talked to Dylan Cousins after practice Tuesday, and one of the things he said on the other power play where they had 4 or 5 shots, didn't score, but that generates positive momentum for the team too. And that's a bigger thing they hadn't been doing at all. When you just let the puck get thrown down the ice 3 times by the PK unit and you get nothing out of it, it's terrible. They really generated a lot on that other opportunity where they didn't score. Obviously, you want them to put the puck in the net, but that's the kind of thing you can get off your power play. They haven't got anything from it. The top unit is finally starting to figure it out. The entries are better. They're keeping more possession time in the zone and are getting their shots.
Yeah, they're retrieving the puck. They're winning puck battles. A lot of that was they were one and done. They shoot the puck, they lose the battle, and then it got cleared, right?
Yeah.
And now it seems like they finally have settled on what their personnel is going to be on that top group. Zucker has been a nice addition, having that veteran presence. He gets to the front of the net. You saw that goal against the Panthers, just whacking a puck out of the air. They still have to figure out that second group, although they've had some flashes early on this season with Owen Power running it. Alex Tuck's pretty good on the power play when he's used properly. You got Jack Quinn struggling. Yuri Kulik was off of it this past game because he was a healthy scratch. Peyton Krebs, Bo Byram. The Sabres are still really trying to figure out who is going to be in that unit, what the identity is going to be. But when you have a top group that's humming along the way that this one is looking right now, you can give them 80 seconds, right?
Yes.
And you don't even have to worry about that second group. You just have to make sure the second group, they don't turn it over, no shorthanded goals, and just continue to, get pucks on net. They looked pretty good in that third period, I thought, Mike, but, Jack Quinn turns the puck over, and that's that.
See, and to me, if Yuri Kulik is going to be on this team, which may be a question, I've got to have him in the lineup, and I've got to have him on that second power play. And otherwise, if they're not going to have him in the lineup and not have him in the second power play, he's got to go to Rochester. And maybe he's going to anyway with this lineup now with Nicholas Aube-Kubel back. But I'm certainly not going to have Yuri Kulik sitting with us having popcorn in the press box much longer.
No, and he's looked confident on the power play. He's firing pucks on goal. He's been really good on entries. It's honestly, to me, the only reason why he was sad, it's just some indecisiveness when it comes to line changes, where he should be in the D zone. It's the little details, but with where they're at, if they put him in the right situation, I think you can overlook that because he can put the puck in the net, and you got to kind of work with him and make sure the confidence is there.
Well, we saw it during the Detroit game. We were sitting in the press box, and we both said it to each other at the same time. The one shift, Kulik was on the ice, and he was about to go off, and he changed his mind and went back into the play. We're like, no, go off. And he got stuck. He got stuck on the ice over a minute that shift, and we actually live with our own eyes saw the indecisiveness and saw the bad decision there, and that's what he still has to learn.
Yeah, Lindy Ruff put Jordan Greenway back on that second unit. Net front presence, of course, Don Granato used Greenway on the power play last season. We'll see how that works out. I just wonder when is Ryan McLeod going to get his opportunity? It would help if he wins more faceoffs. He's not winning them at the rate that he was in Edmonton. That would certainly help him get that sort of a role. But I think the more veteran guys you could put out there right now with where this team is at, some of the immaturity they're showing with the penalties, the turnovers, the puck management, I think it would help, especially with they got to get some momentum going. You can't have another drought for this power play. You got to keep it rolling.
I like the fact, 2 games in a row, we can joke about it, but before these 2 games, they were getting close. You felt that first goal coming. Now they've scored 2 games in a row, and now that top group, Thompson's hotter than anything anyway. Then you put him out on the power play. He's certainly feeling it out there. So I do think they have a weapon there. And I like Zucker. I like the veteran influence there, but you're right. Some of these young players, you can feel some of the mistakes they're making. Look at what Byram did last night on the goal in the first period. Way out of position on the neutral zone. Dahlin out of position on the second goal. Really 2 quick goals where the Sabres had a decent start, and all of a sudden they're down 2-0.
Goaltending is an interesting discussion. That's our third topic, of course. It was interesting to see the reaction from fans. No, a lot of people weren't happy with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen showing against the Panthers. I don't blame them in some respects. A couple of those goals, I think he should have stopped, getting caught too deep into his crease. Where do you stand on the goaltending, Mike? We haven't seen much of Devin Levi. We haven't seen him since that Columbus game. Of course, he's going to play one of the games of the back-to-back. To me, as much as this isn't at all on Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, he hasn't stolen that game for them yet. He hasn't had to stand on his head. He's given up. He's just giving up too many of those goals where it's like, hey, you should have had, like, he has the ability to stop that puck, but he's not doing it. You know, the 2-on-1 against Detroit. There have just been a couple where it's just their head scratches where you need him to stop that, especially the timing of the game to help, correct, cover up some of the mistakes that they're making.
I liked the Chicago game and I liked the Dallas game for Luukkonen. Obviously, the Pittsburgh game was a terrible game for him. I thought Levi obviously was terrible in Columbus. Luukkonen battled through this 3-game win streak, and he put up some good numbers there. Now, the Florida game, the first 3 goals, you have defensive mistakes, you have guys all alone, you have an odd man rush. Okay. I didn't like goal 4 at all, Sam Bennett. He got beat clean on a shot there, unscreened, at a time when the game is 3-2. I got to have that save. The 5th goal wasn't great. It was off the post. It was a nice shot. But I got to have the Sam Bennett goal. And you're right. In Detroit, against the Detroit team, that shorthanded goal was a 2-on-1, but it was like Luukkonen was playing the pass, and he didn't cover the short side. So that was a bothersome goal too. But overall, to me, you've played 10 games. I circle goaltending as a problem in 2 of the 10 games, really. Pittsburgh and Columbus, it was a problem. I don't really circle goaltending as a problem in any other games. Has it been a big advantage? Levi played very well against Florida. He certainly outplayed Spencer Knight in that game. Luukkonen, like I said, had a couple good games during the winning streak. The goaltending's been okay. I still want better defensive zone coverage, fewer stupid penalties, and a better power play before I'm going to list the goaltending as any real problem here.
I agree with you. They're taking too many penalties. They're losing too many puck battles in key situations. Like the penalty kill was a promising year last season. They made a improvement in so many areas. Most of the personnel is back, yet the numbers are so much worse. And a lot of that, Mike, is just you're taking bad penalties at difficult times of the game. And if you give a good team, like even the Kings, you put Kopitar on the power play,
right?
He's going to find a way to beat you. If you give the Panthers a power play in the third period, and you're not defending all that well in that PK, their decor isn't. I think Samuelson and Clifton have, but the other guys just haven't been good enough yet, and that hurts you.
And stop taking 3 and 4 and 5 penalties a game. If you give these teams 3, 4, 5 power play opportunities, you're going to give up at least 1 power play goal. And that can be the difference in the game, especially the way your power play is going. You're going to lose the special teams battle most nights. And I think that's one of the problems they're running into. They have to cut down the number of stick fouls, the number of things they do out there that create these advantages.
This lineup, the first line looks really good, obviously, with Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, and JJ Peterka. The Ryan McLeod line, they've been very good, and they've gotten very difficult assignments most games. Top lines, D-zone draws, and that fourth line, mostly good. It hasn't been perfect. You can look at the numbers. Sam Lafferty's he's been guilty of some bad penalties. Peyton Krebs has been a little up and down, although it's been, he's earning a role on this team. That Dylan Cousins line, they're still trying to figure out the right mix. You got 2 guys, he and Jack Quinn, who are just fighting it right now. They're a crisis of confidence, if you want to put it that way. And Lindy Ruff's tried Benson there. He's tried Yuri Kulik. He tried Nicholas Abe-Kubel. He tried Jason Zucker. And still, it hasn't made a difference. And when you have a line that's playing as much as that one is supposed to, and they're struggling like they are, it's a real drain on the group. And, because Dylan Cousins is doing some good things. So he's getting his 17 minutes. but you're not getting a whole lot out of it, right? So
I
it's
talked
going to
to
hold you back.
I talked to Dylan Cousins after practice on Tuesday, and would we say he's frustrated? Yes. I think he said, "I'll take a goal off my bleeping head if that's what it takes at this point." Dylan Cousins has 32 shots on goal this season, and going into play on Tuesday, he leads the NHL for players with no goals. That's how frustrating things have gotten for Dylan Cousins. Now, I think the way he's starting to get some opportunities in the power play, that could be his breakthrough area. Get a power play goal, get yourself where you got some more room on the ice, get a goal, get off the schneid and start going here. I do wonder, he's getting a lot of opportunities, so that is a good thing. But when do we get to the point where let's just see them throw Dylan Cousins out on the wing? Get him out of the middle. And what did he say to me today? What I expect him to say: I'm a true center. I believe my best position is center. Even for a game or two, I would like to see a veteran with Cousins and Quinn, whether it's Abe Kubel, whether it's Zucker. I think that eliminates a lot of the mental stress. When you're running Kulik out there with them, Cousins and Quinn got to be playing well. They got to be producing if you're going to put them out there with Kulik. If they're not, you've got problems across all three positions. But right now, ultimately, Dylan Cousins, you've paid your $7 million to be your second line center, and you're thinking you're getting a 30-goal scorer like you did 2 years ago. And it was a disappointment to get an 18-goal scorer, and now you have no goals, and you're through 10 games of the season. So obviously that cannot continue.
Reflecting on our final topic, of course, the first 10 games of the season, Mike. I mentioned it, 4-5-1. Last year they were 5-5. Statistically, there's marginal improvement. They've allowed more goals. Some of that's situational. Some of it's, you look at that Pittsburgh game, you get Columbus, but their Corsi at 5-on-5 is better. Their expected goal share is better. If you look at the NHL's edge data, they are creating more around the net. They look like a more mature offensive team. They're getting guys to the front. Their D are active. There's a lot more going on there. But I mean, what do you make of this start? How much improvement have we truly seen? And it's funny. I talked to Alex Tuck after practice today, and he said if you just throw out those two Prague games, and you really think about it, it's not nearly as bad as it may seem. Especially when you look at these games one by one and how they were lost and what really went on during the game.
And I look at it too, that going into the Florida game, they were 4-4-1. There were 5 teams in the Atlantic Division that were 4-4-1. They were in the mushy middle of everything. Everybody's there. Boston was there. Toronto was there until they went to Winnipeg. So the Sabres are right there. They had dug a little bit of a hole already at 0-3 and at 1-4-1. And they were able to crawl out of that and kind of escape that hole they were in. And you don't want to be in that deep hole like we've seen in previous years. They got out of that. They lose to Florida. Now you got a big back-to-back coming up this weekend with another game against Detroit. So standings-wise, I think the opportunity is still there and they're fine. How are they playing? We've highlighted some of the inefficiencies so far, but I do think you are seeing a better attack. They are going to the net more. They are creating more. They're more physical for sure. Beck Malenstein has really helped in that area. They block more shots. I think that's been a big area of improvement too. They seem more organized. I think that's a credit to Lindy Ruff and Seth Appert. But yeah, your power play can't be 32nd in the NHL. Their 5-on-5 data is very good. Their numbers are very good at 5-on-5, but it doesn't matter if you're going to have the 32nd ranked power play in the NHL. That has to be, in my mind, the number one area of improvement here in the next 10 games. They've got to figure out a way to get this power play into the middle of the league because they have enough quality players to do it, but they can't have it be the anchor of their entire attack.
Yeah, this team, their decor, with all that they've invested in it, including trading Casey Middlestat for Bowen Byram, has to be better than it has been, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've liked Samuelson's looked better the last couple of games, in my opinion. I've liked Connor Clifton. Like that third pair has been fine, and for the most part, these last 3 or 4 games, I've liked what they've done. But you look at Bowen Byram and Owen Power, the numbers, Byram in particular, they're ugly. They are like that. Those guys need to be much more consistent. And you look around the league, and the Panthers are a great example. The way that they're their D box out the front of the net. They make it very difficult to get to the front of the net. You have to pay a price to do it. The Sabres are giving out free popcorn, and they're giving you a ticket to just go stand there, right? Like, it's been a problem in past years. It needs to be addressed. They are losing coverage. They're not tying up sticks. They're not boxing. There's just a lot of details that go into playing that position that the Sabres haven't been good enough at the start of the season. For all that they gave a lot of money to Rasmus Dahlin. They gave a lot of money to Owen Power. And you got Henry Jokiharju, who's been in the league for a while, Bowen Byram. There's a lot invested in him as well. So that group needs to be better. I do agree with you. Structure. How often are the Sabres practicing back checking in? It's almost every practice, it seems.
Every day
has these guys back checking.
Every day.
Battle drills and protecting the puck. And that is paying off in games for the most part. It's just individual mistakes that are really holding them back right now. And, it's costing them. They're beating themselves more often than they're losing other teams, in my opinion. I think
you're right. Because we've seen a guy like Power, how good Power has been offensively this year, how his vision on the ice has been terrific, but he does tend to lose guys at times in front of the net. Dahlin, I don't really ever accuse Dahlin of having the kind of brain cramps we've seen this year. I think back to that horrible Seattle game where he gave up the shorthanded goal to Tanev in 21, where really one of the lowest moments of his career. But I don't know what Dahlin was thinking on the second goal last night. I mean, I can't have that play from my captain. I can't go behind the net when the guy is already covered. You tell me when two guys can ever be behind the net. It's not the way you play defense. And you leave Sam Reinhart, of all people, the guy who only scored 57 goals last year, you leave him all alone in front. So those are the kind of plays that I don't care what coaching you have. At some point, it's incumbent on the players to not have brain cramps on the ice like we saw. And, Dahlin, I think the way he played and scored that second goal, he almost played it with the kind of fervor that I have to make up for what I did. I have to make a play here to make up for the second Florida goal. And that's what he did in that play. And he's capable of doing that. But we need to see a lot more consistency. And here's the question, Lance. If I said to you, who has been the Sabres' best defenseman this year?
Owen Power, probably. And
I would probably say Power, but you could pick at Power's game some too. He's made the most interesting and unique plays, but none of them have really stood out. If I say to you, who is the Sabres' best forward this year? Well, it's obvious who you're going to say. It's obviously number 72. But defensively, boy, they have all struggled. And like you say, Samuelsson was awful at the start of the year. He's been much better lately. Dahlin up and down, Power a little up and down. Byram has been struggling lately. Jokiharju's been pretty consistent.
All right,
we don't say his name much. When you're a defenseman, sometimes that's a good thing. And I like Clifton a lot. I think Clifton's been good for a year.
Yeah.
The second half of last year and into this year, I think Clifton has really started to really become a nice addition. Physical, he's going to the net. I think he's really had a good year so far. Probably deserves to have 2, 3, 4 goals at this point. Hasn't really found the net and finished, but I like his game a lot.
Yeah, people focus on the first 25 games of last season and just forget about everything else when it comes to Connor Clifton. He's only making $3+ million. He's
Great
good
deal.
as a third pair defenseman. He's good on penalty kills. I just want him to take fewer penalties because I want him on the ice for those penalty kills. He's very good at killing penalties, and that's hurt them because some of these guys who are in the penalty box they're on the PK. If you lose one of them, it's tough sailing. But Mike, a few more games this weekend. Sabres host the Islanders on Friday night. Then they go to Detroit on Saturday. This schedule is pretty interesting. A lot of home games. We're in the middle of that stretch right now. And like you mentioned earlier, the Atlantic Division, it's a crowded group, right? Below the Panthers and the Lightning right now. So the Sabres, as much as they're 4-5-1, they're not happy about that. It's still early, and you take some snapshots of that game against the Panthers. If they can just hit the repeat button on some of those shifts and some of the, the way that they came back in that game, they looked like a different team, and they're looking like a different team. It's just they're not able to play 60 minutes. Alex Tuck put it, we need all 21 guys going. We can't have half going. We can't have half of the guys not buying in, losing puck battles. Everybody needs to be going, and they still haven't put that full game together yet, right? I mean, even some of these wins, they've given up a couple of goals late, and it's been closer than it should have. this team's got to figure that part of it out.
And we saw last year at the end of the season, they went to Detroit twice. They only scored 1 goal. There were bad turnovers, a couple from Jack Quinn in that last meeting in Detroit. So let's see when they go to Detroit this year. Can they go in a place that's usually the crowd is pretty full, the atmosphere is pretty good, and they need to get another win, another division win. They just took care of the Red Wings last week. Now they get them again. And that's really a key game. And it's also a key game because it's the second of a back-to-back, and they've been terrible on these back-to-backs. I think the number now, they've already 0-2 in the second game of back-to-backs this year. So I think that makes them 3-11 in the second game of 1-11 in the second game of back-to-backs dating to last year. They lost 9 of the last 10. So they have to figure out how to play a B game Saturday in Detroit, no matter what happens against the Islanders on Friday.
Simplify, simplify, simplify. I'm sure Lindy Ruff will be saying that quite a few times as they get ready for that challenge. We'll be on Apple and Spotify soon enough. So not only can you watch this podcast on YouTube and the Buffalo News website, of course, but you could find us on those platforms as well soon. Takes a few days for that whole process to finish up. So thank you in advance for your patience. Thank you for listening to us. We'll be back next week with episode 3. He's Mike Harrington. I'm Lance Lysowski. Thank you again.